So, any codec moments from you, Snake?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Codec Moments. I'm Ephraim Scufflegrit, joined here again with Flash Medallion. How you doing today, sir?
Not too bad. Little worse for wear after a long night, but I'm doing all right. Thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm finally getting all set up. For the last week, my computer was sitting on the floor, and I was just sitting in front of it, but I've got a desk all set up now, and we're ready to get active on the subreddit again and all that fun stuff.
I've been there. I've been there when you just can't be arsed, and your computer's sitting in the corner somewhere. And I lived on a lazy boy for a week while I was waiting for a bed. I had a really weird computer setup. Yeah,
so a lot has happened. I mean, it's been almost 2 months now since we've recorded one of these.
Oh, has it? The time does fly.
Yeah, obviously Phantom Pain has come out. That's what we'll be focusing on for probably the next few podcasts. I mean, there's a lot of content here that definitely will keep us busy for a while.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to talk about. So just a heads up to anyone listening, this first one probably won't touch much in terms of story or spoiler stuff. So if you haven't finished the game, you should be fine to listen to it. But I expect next week we'll probably start diving into the story, what's going on, things like that. So continue to listen. We'll try and remember to go, if you haven't played, but I doubt there'll be anything along those lines that's particularly going to ruin things for people.
No, not on this one. I mean, the story is just going to give us so much, too. I mean, that'll give us ages and ages of discussion. So, yeah, definitely for now, we're just focusing on gameplay, impressions, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so on that front, first impressions. Let's talk about the prologue, because everybody knows about the prologue. How was it? How was it for you?
I thought it was interesting because, I mean, I got it probably 12 hours after, a lot of our friends in the line chat and the subreddit got it. And a buddy of mine lives out in LA. He got it early, and I remember him mentioning something like, oh, dude, the music, you're going to be blown away. And so I fired up the game for the first time, and that cover of Man Who Sold the World just like instantly sucked me in. And I think the prologue itself was one of the best moments in my gaming history. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I definitely just stopped and soaked that in. I got it relatively quickly. It took about an hour to download from my midnight, which was a good, 8 hours ahead of everybody else. Had the week off work. I was set to go. I was in a chat with a lot of you guys, and then the game finished, and I signed off and fired it up, and I just had the stupidest grin on my face when, at the very, very beginning, another day in Out Heaven, just that scene, we were already talking about story stuff, but we'd all seen it in the trailers where he picks up the tape, and we thought, that's going to be the end of the game, and then something like that, and it's right there, very first thing off the bat, and then that song starts playing, and we go into the coming out of the coma thing, and I was in awe. I absolutely loved it.
I thought it was maybe the best, definitely at least one of the best scenes of the game, but I mean, like you, I went over to my best friend's house, who was also a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. We fired it up, and I remember just like right when that song started up, we just kind of looked at each other and just like grinned, like, oh my god, this is it. And, aside from just like the very beginning, I mean, the gameplay was incredible. It was a nice little introduction thing, and, you got the cliche video game like, press up on the D-pad to look up, press down on the D-pad to look down.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It was a very, very good tutorial. I posted an article about it a while ago. A writer I like was talking about it. It's great how much they don't just tell you how to do stuff, they show you why you should do it. Like, you start off with a lot of crawling and it makes you feel pretty weak, but very quickly the prologue makes you feel like that crawling is actually something you should be doing, and then once you get into the game, you realize how effective crawling is. Little things like that.
Definitely. I think my favorite part of the prologue, aside from the cinematics and stuff, but gameplay-wise, I thought it was really cool that you hid amongst the dead bodies of the soldiers and the hospital people and stuff. That was really cool. And for this scene, and for a mission later in the game as well, we won't really dive into, the whole time during the intro and that other mission, the whole time I was like, man, Silent Hills would have been a really good game.
Yep, I had that moment several times, actually. I can think of 3 off the top of my head where that horrorness, I know what you're referring to as well. But another bit I'll just call in the mission Voices, it had some great setup. It used the level design very well. Yeah, there's a lot to love in there. It is a real shame about Silent Hills. I'm not even a massive Silent Hills fan, but after playing that PT demo, I just wanted in on that.
Mine actually, my PT demo randomly downloaded itself again the other day. I was actually pretty pleased with that. Yeah, it was strange. Like, I can't remember the reason I deleted it off, but it was before it got pulled off, and then I missed the, like, hey, you better download it before it goes away, and, for months I didn't have it again, and that was that.
Yeah, so let's even talk about the first few missions again. I start off pretty bare bones, and, well, you haven't got a whole lot of toys, but even that first mission, which I got to play at E3, and the ones after that, I mean, you go back to them now, and they're so easy, but at the time, you're really kind of getting tested quite quickly. I found.
Definitely, and I was surprised how early the skull unit showed up.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Yeah, that wasn't as much of a surprise to me. It's weird how you get them then, and they don't come back for a very long time. Although that's not even true. That's not even true. There's the honeybee mission too. So let's talk about the skulls. How do you rate them as far as, I guess, what counts as the boss fights in the game?
I can't remember the name of the mission. It was the one after there's a crash and you have to fight a bunch of them. I was really struggling with it, and then I can't remember. Yeah.
It took me a very long time. I sat down and did it like in one sitting, and of course. It happened to me a few times, a couple of like emergent boss fights, and I was stuck with my loadout from the previous mission, and it didn't really occur to me to abort the mission and then go back into it with a better loadout. So like I completed it with a tranq pistol and an assault rifle.
Oh wow!
And like a sneaking suit and shit like that. So I was at a bit of a handicap, but it didn't bug me. In hindsight, it could have been easier, but I also liked the immersiveness. People use the concept so shittily, but it was like that. It's like 1 minute I'm on a sneaking mission, and now I'm going to fight these guys like that. That was cool.
I definitely liked that, like the feeling you get, like, you know, you knew they were going to be there because of the titles or whatever. I just stopped reading them, so it was kind of a surprise when they showed up for me, and you really do feel like, you know, like I was terrified when they showed up until, you know, for that mission that was really hard where you had to fight all of them, I couldn't do it, and I mentioned in the line chat that I was, you know, super frustrated with it. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Germo was like, dude, just use D-Walker, and so
It sounds like Prati. If I had to make a wild guess, I would say if anybody's suggesting D-Walker, it would have been Prati.
Yeah, probably, but yeah, that made it like super easy. I think I got like an S rank on it after I tried it with D-Walker. As far as them serving for boss fights, I think it was definitely a huge step up from Peace Walker, like the same vehicles over and over again. They didn't rate too high for me as far as really enjoying their characters or anything, but I thought that they served their purpose well.
Yeah, they're not traditional Metal Gear Solid bosses, and I think the recurring theme throughout a lot of Metal Gear Solid 5 is it's not a traditional Metal Gear Solid element where you could talk about a million things like that, on the face of it anyway. And so this game's more about open tactical combat and sneaking. So that's what the skulls represent, especially in the order in which you fight them. Like, you can't hide from them. If they don't know where you are, they won't attack you, some of them. So you're still being tested on your tactical combat. And tactical combat in Metal Gear Solid 5 is not about being a wicked guy who can shoot everybody. It's how can you move around in a firefight? How can you get a flank in on someone? Things like that. And that's what wins you those fights. And then that comes out with the skulls and the honeybee mission. And then later on, there's just, the guys that come out of the truck. Again, is more of a straight up combat, but you can make life a lot easier for yourself if you plan and fight them tactically. And then you get the snipers, the sniper encounter, and so on and so forth. So yeah, they're not like huge, cool, memorable characters at all, but I think in terms of what a boss fight should be in a video game, they were pretty good. Pretty good.
Definitely, I agree with you on that, and I like that you brought up that Metal Gear Solid 5 is a lot about, you know, like the tactical nature of it. The best friend that I mentioned earlier, he beat the game, I think just like probably about 2 weeks ago now, and he was like, oh, it got really repetitive, and it's like, what gear did you develop? He's like, oh, that didn't really develop much, and I said, well, that's your problem, man. Like, the best part about this game for me was that all of the freedom that it gives you, and there's a lot of complaints online that I saw about the last update, moving the resources online and stuff, and a lot of people were saying, it's so shitty that they're not letting us play the game like we want to. But I mean, I think that Metal Gear Solid 5 has a few problems here and there, but freedom of gameplay is absolutely not one of them to me. I mean, it's just so open to you how you tackle anything.
And it kind of brings up one of the running, I guess it's a problem for a lot of people, in that if you want to optimally play through most Metal Gear Solid games, you just run around headshotting people with the tranquilizer pistol, and that's all the gameplay that you'll ever get. So if you want to get a lot more out of those games, it really is up to you to dive around and limit yourself or play differently or do these things. And I really liked how this game rewards CQC a lot more, especially early on when ammo is quite limited and you might not want to risk a supply drop or something where you don't want to waste time on it. You start rationing out your tranq guns, and suddenly CQC is actually really useful and optimal, and then that brings you in closer, and suddenly it's more dynamic, and then more tactics suggest themselves, decoys and magazines and all sorts of things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, it was kind of hard to convince myself not to just run around headshotting people with the trank gun, because getting the platinum trophies for the past games made me like pretty good.
You're pretty good
At that. And
Yeah,
so
it's just a default, eh?
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think like after I moved past that, I think my biggest strategy was just to set up CQC so I could do it. My favorite one was like the active decoy, get them all in one area, and then do like that sick ass looking combo where you take like 4 guys down. And the smoke grenades were super cool for that. And I mean, you're right, it definitely rewards CQC. So 80% of the game for me was like, all right, how do I set up this sick ass looking combo?
You mentioned the smoke grenades. One thing that I really enjoyed in Phantom Pain is that a lot of tactics from the boss fights in Peace Walker, which I'd just done over and over again, like I stealth S-ranked every mission on Peace Walker twice, like once on PSP, once on the HD collection. And that's just a little repetitive tactic, you know, smoke grenade, night vision goggles, get in there, deal with them. And that's kind of a little isolated incident in Peace Walker, but in Phantom Pain now, it becomes one of the many little tricks you've got in your arsenal. You know, there's 4 guys wandering down the road together, and you want to get in there, and, you know, that's one thing you can do, smoke grenade, night vision, CQC, or hold up, or whatever. And on that note, I love the vehicle side ops in Phantom Pain. It's like the perfect realization of what those vehicle battles were in Peace Walker.
Absolutely. It's like felt like what they should have been or what they could have been on a console.
I think it's what they're meant to represent, and Peace Walker couldn't quite do that. But I love how they repeat, which is probably controversial, but there's always like a given number of armored tank units, armored units, elite infantry guys, like just on the map at any point, and you can stumble across them and they can get in your way if you're going from A to B between missions or objectives or something like that, and suddenly there's like a tank unit in your way, and then you just drop in and do I neutralize this tank unit? Do I do it stealth? Do I try and fight a tank? That stuff was really cool.
Definitely. I like that they still like change colors as you progress, like in Peace Walker as well. And sorry, go on.
No, I keep going. I was just going to say, I always get a smile on my face when I see a red tank. I wish the commanders would pop out and yell at you.
I was just about to say that. I do miss like kind of like the little like humor things that Peace Walker had, you know, cause radioing you, like, oh, there's too many people on Mother Base. People are literally falling off into the ocean.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like the smoke grenades and stuff, which made me think about how soldiers got the gas masks and stuff. Do you think that, I mean, like with GZ and a couple of the Peace Walker missions and stuff, you know, you have like some superstars like Perfect Stealth, like, oh, I did the mission in, you know, X amount of time and got this rank. Do you think that because with the daytime and the nighttime, and then sometimes soldiers have helmets, sometimes they don't, do you think that Phantom Pain has kind of lost some of that, or not necessarily lost, but it's harder to make possible to kind of like compare times and stuff?
Well, it's hard to say because I haven't seen anybody doing it. Like, we've got the combat unit that runs, and it hasn't got a huge amount of entries, mostly because I keep cocking it up. Like, every time I forget to mention one thing, someone's like, oh, you didn't say anything about buddy equipment. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, can you people not just... Anyway, but I haven't actually seen a lot of it around. Like, people post videos of, here's my sweet run of this or that, but I haven't seen anything. I think because there's more stuff as well, like with Ground Zeroes are like 6 missions, right? You could really get out and nail those missions. There's no leaderboards in Phantom Pain, which I found interesting.
I did
like
too.
there was in Ground Zeroes.
I thought that it's like maybe part of like the nice thing about Phantom Pain actually is it's not about like, oh, look at the score that I got, or oh, look at the time that I got. It's like,
That's
hey,
true.
look at this like sick way that I did it. Like, look how good it looks. Instead of the end result, it's more about like the journey and how you get there and the tactics that you use.
That's a great point. So I don't know if that stuff takes away from the competitiveness. It's not as bad as I expected. It's made me adjust my tactics a little bit. Like, now I'm happy to waste ammo tranking people in the legs because I just don't want to have to deal with guys with helmets sometimes. And even though I can deal with, all it takes sometimes is just a little bit of cockiness and a little bit of haste instead of speed, and suddenly some guy spots you and he's got a helmet and you can't shoot him in the face in time, and your perfectly laid plans will just turn to dust. So I noticed a shitload of gas masks everywhere when I first started playing because of my early tactics. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that kind of stuff has more impact on like FOB raids and things like that.
Oh, definitely. I've been doing a lot of FOB lately, and I love how you can like kind of scope it out before you go in there, and like there's always like that feeling when you look in, you're like, oh shit, this guy actually has gas masks on his people. Fuck.
Yeah, I like the FOBs for what they are. They're not what I thought they would be. But once I got used to it, really the FOB mission is just the ultimate stealth test. Everybody knows the layouts. They're all the same. It's about perfecting your runs through platforms. And the only real variables, just like in the regular game, is what kind of guards or resistance you're up against.
That's true, and it is different from what I expected. And don't get me wrong, I do love the FOBs, but I was also kind of disappointed where like you couldn't really change the layout or like everything's the same. And I mean, not only that, but once you get past like the first, main platforms, like the first one, like the Intel is different than the combat and so on and so forth. There's only really like 3 other platforms that there are.
Yeah, that's true as well. Yeah, it's not the experience I was hoping for, but I do like what it is.
Definitely.
That pure. Oh, and even like again, like definitely a function of the regular game itself. It's what is my objective here? And your objective might not be getting to the goal. Your objective might be getting as many of this poor bastard's fuel containers as you possibly can before you run out of fuels. So you can always go into those things with different. I wanted to pad my combat unit because my security team. I've still got A ranks in my security team, or had. I'm sick of having A ranks on my security team because I need a higher level. So I just raided combat units for an afternoon and just tried to go for A plus staff as much as I could, and I built up a nice buffer.
That's actually what I'm doing right now, not necessarily for my security team, but I'm trying to get all of the combat deployments, and I've got it all. I've got my first 10 guys, or I think it's like 3 S plus and then 7 S's, and I've still only got like 62% success rate on one of them.
You'll never get a good success rate. I gave up. I just decided to I used my A plus staff, and they got me 50-50 chance of winning. So I just kept throwing them into the grinder until I won. I think that's kind of what you meant to do.
Oh, good point. Did you get the trophy for that one?
Yep.
All right, that's my new strategy.
Yeah, go for the lowest ranks you can. It'll give you over 50% chance of success, and just do that. You're not going to lose too many guys. I think it's like a 25% loss rate. That's 2.5 guys out of 10. So they're not. They're expendable, which is an interesting part of the Phantom Pain as well, is how expendable your soldiers are.
Yeah, especially compared to Peace Walker. I mean, we were talking about this the other day, a couple of the guys, but Peace Walker, I definitely felt closer to MSF and felt the losses of my soldiers a lot more than I do in Phantom Pain. In Phantom Pain, they're just kind of like drones to me.
Yeah, exactly. This Diamond Dogs is much closer to Outer Heaven, I think. There's just hard to go into it too much, but there's a little bit of a sense of denial, or there's a facade there about this is our unit and this is what matters, but they're much more realistic about the fact that these guys are going to die, and there's much less attachment, and they're drones, they're just soldiers in a meat grinder. I like that as a thematic development a lot.
So do you think that was intentional?
I think there's a lot to support it in the way that various things happen in the game. And Kaz talks about how he rebuilt, I'm going into plot stuff here, how he rebuilt a new mother base. It'll be stronger and tougher, and it wouldn't have the same weaknesses as the old one. And I think and Big Boss keeps trying to interrupt, and that's really funny. This is a quite funny conversation, and Big Boss is trying to get a word in, and Kaz keeps talking over him, which is hilarious if you think about all the complaints about Big Boss speaking and stuff like that. But yeah, I think there's a human cost to whatever it is that Kaz is trying to do.
Definitely. Absolutely. And speaking of stuff not being expected, was there anything that you were counting on there being in Phantom Pain that didn't make it in?
Gameplay-wise, are we still on that, or just in general?
A little bit of both, mostly gameplay.
Counting on is, I had some pretty heavy expectations. I thought it would be almost a shoo-in that we'd see Grey Fox. Grey Fox Naomi. Well, I would say it's perfect, but really it's a little too perfect. And of course, it makes sense why they never showed up. It makes perfect sense. But it's hard to talk about that because we were very heavily conditioned to expect a very certain type of experience, and we kind of got that experience, but not in the way that we were told we would get it.
That's true, and I was kind of expecting to see Grey Fox. I wasn't necessarily disappointed not to see him, but
yeah, I'm not like pissed off at it. It's something I expected to see, and it's not there for obvious reasons. So that's a funny one. Yeah, I guess customization of Mother Base. There's one thing I was really hanging out for.
I was just about to say, if there was anything that I was disappointed that didn't make it into Phantom Pain, it was Mother Base as a whole. I mean, not just customization, but I mean, there was a tweet, I think it was Ken Ichiro that put it out, that like, oh yeah, you can visit each other's Mother Base, and there's fun activities and stuff you can do on it. And well, I realized that like you can't really take everything as gold that's tweeted, but I was kind of disappointed that we were told that we would have that and we didn't get it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying saying like, oh, the game's shit because we didn't have it, blah, 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 blah. But I was really disappointed that I couldn't visit my best friend's mother base and like we could spar with each other and stuff like that.
There's a lot of that stuff that is weird because it looks finalized. Like, we've seen pre-release video of soldiers shooting at targets, and you can go up next to them and shoot targets with them. Things like that. And like, that was clearly functional and working, and yet it was removed.
Yeah, that was strange to me, because you're right, because we did see it.
And the other things, Ocelot on the platform, a lot of that stuff was very, like, someone had to go back and take it out. It's not like it was unfinished, so they didn't put it in. Somebody had to go back and take all that stuff out. So I'm kind of curious about that. There's weirdness to me about the non-lethalness on Mother Base. Like, you can't use lethal weapons at all, and it's a game over if you kill a staff member. Which is, I guess, you're kind of saving the player from themselves there, which is a different discussion. But I suspect that might be why a lot of that stuff isn't there. It's the only thing I can think of. Like, if you've got a firing range, and then you just pull out a missile launcher and wipe half your staff, like, how do you deal with that as a game? Do you slap the player on the wrist and give them a game over? Do you go, nah, you just lost your staff, and hey, that happened to be your S+ guy, but tough luck? I wonder how much of that sidestepping. But this is all speculation. It's really hard to work out what exactly happened there.
Definitely, I mean, it is strange, because, I mean, regardless of, what the story actually was or whatever, I won't dive into that too much, but, even if there wasn't, this huge descent into villainy and stuff, like, Snake is still portrayed as, becoming a demon, or he already is a demon, and so on and so forth, and the imagery with the horn and the tail and so on and so forth, and yet you can't even use a gun at your own base.
Yeah. So it's a hard one. It'll take a few years to work out what happened there, but I find it odd about how much was specifically removed, and I can't really think of a good reason why you'd go to all that trouble to take it out.
The only thing I can think of is that we know how much of a perfectionist Kojima is, and if it wasn't like absolutely perfect, he wouldn't want it in there. But again, that's all speculation as well.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold water to me. But anyway, so that'll be my disappointment. It's not quite the same as visiting someone's FOB, because it's just the same as your FOB. Oh, that's weird too. Like, I visited my own FOB for the first time like a few days ago. Like, I disarmed a mine. I saw a mine, and like, it wasn't going to blow up, and I just disarmed it, and then Cars goes, "Boss, what the hell do you think you're doing? Mission failed." I was like, oh. It was really weird. Like, there was one soldier that I walked past who saluted me. It was actually nice to see how decked out my soldiers are. I wasn't really sure what my soldiers were up to, but all I know is that I don't respond to invasions anymore, because no one's ever succeeded. Yeah, and he saluted me as I walked past, and then I disarmed a mine, and I got mission failed. So, sorry, Cars.
That's it. Were you defending, or?
No, I was visiting. Like, you can visit your FOB. You like, just wander around it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to try that. It's interesting to me that you get a mission failed for disarming a bomb, though.
Yeah, it is interesting. So,
fuck you. My name's like Big Boss. If I want to move a mine over here, I'm going to move a mine over here, you blind peon.
Yeah, that's a funny one. Talk about FOB. Do you have a favorite mission? Like, say, gameplay-wise, or a favorite scenario?
Ooh, I really liked Shining Lights, obviously, for obvious reasons, without diving too much into the story. Not necessarily because of the story that was going on, but it was new, it was fresh, and it was the first, and there's only a few missions where I felt something. Like, I felt excitement and stuff throughout the whole game, but I think that mission was really one of maybe 3 or 4 missions in the whole game where I, like, felt emotions and really felt what I felt that Snake was supposed to be feeling.
That's interesting that you say that, because I would wonder how little we are feeling anything is also supposed to be what Snake's feeling. In terms of, like, just straight up, sneaking missions, mission design, did you have a favorite?
For mission design, probably the
moments or...
Yeah, infiltrating the OKB-0 felt like classic Metal Gear Solid to me, because it was like this big, huge base. That was absolutely amazing to me. The mission the Metal Gear fight was obviously, like, pretty awesome.
That was exemplary. In that mission, I just go, it just felt like what a Metal Gear fight it always meant to feel like, just to do with the openness of the area and the way it behaves. And it was alien and strange at first, trying to fight it, and my Peace Walker instincts were just kicking in like crazy. But yeah, now that I've done it a few times for fun, I love it even more as a straight up Metal Gear fight. It's Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely, and I think you hit the nail on the head with, and I think that's what Kojima had like always wanted to do since 1987 when Metal Gear came out and you fought the TX-55 or whatever the actual name was. That it really felt like you were a man versus a mech. There was no like little tricks where you have to do this or that or run in a particular pattern or anything. You really were just a man versus this giant nuclear-equipped walking tank, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, I was calling in helicopter strikes. I tried rolling around in D-Walker for a while. I mean, it was really cool to me that the freedom of Phantom Pain translated to a giant mech fight.
Yes, and there's like one of those mobile missile launchers hanging around in the area, and you can hop in that and have a go with it. I didn't because I forgot that like when your vehicle blows up, Snake just rolls out and he's fine. I'm like, it seems like a weakness getting inside a vehicle. I forgot about the mechanic. But the best part for me was in that fight, the first time I got to it. What had I done? I'd just been cranking a couple of missions because I wanted to research the honeybee. So I'd spent some time hunting down the guided missile specialist and done some other missions and started researching it. And the honeybee unlocked about 2 minutes into my fight against the Metal Gear. And Honeybee, of course, just being the fictional version of the Stinger. I was like, this is amazing. This is like my own organic Metal Gear Solid moment where the Stinger has become available. And, Stinger versus Rex or versus Arrays. It's just that classic Metal Gear Solid. And so I seriously jeopardized my fight by ordering the Honeybee, got into the box and wiggled around and changed into it so that I could have my classic moment. And it turns out the Honeybee's a piece of shit at level 1 or whatever it is. But at the time, it was fun. It was a real neat moment. And that's probably a pretty unique moment. I don't know how many people would have had the Stinger missile launcher finished developing as they fought Metal Gear the first time. I thought it was fun.
Did I see you mention that you used a tank during that fight at some point?
It wasn't me, probably Prati. I'm pretty sure you can just drop a tank in, and there are tanks scattered around, like I was saying. There's missile launchers and stuff.
Definitely. And I do remember, I think it was probably like the third or the fourth day the game came out, you said you had played a mission that felt like an entire Metal Gear Solid 1. I'm assuming that was OKB0?
No, it wasn't. It was Pitch Dark.
That
to me felt like a whole Metal Gear Solid game. It was fucking cool. You start off like on top of that, it's your introduction to Africa. That whole mission is fucking excellent. You start off, you get out of a helicopter in a swamp and then go through a jungle and then climb up a cliff and then go through a village with like child soldiers being trained, and then you leg it across the savannah like dodging patrols, and then you round a cliff, get to an oil facility, find your way into the oil facility, sneak your way to a thing, put some C4 on it, flip a switch, get out, bust it, and then escape as a bunch of D-Walkers come to lock you in. Like, it's just about the entirety of Snake Eater, in a nutshell, almost. I absolutely adored that mission, especially the first time, when I had hardly any, not very good gear and all that kind of stuff, and just the pressure's on, it's night time, and I don't know what I'm doing, and yeah, loved it.
Absolutely. That's, like, looking back on it, was definitely one of my favorite missions, too, for the same reasons. And speaking of the oil field and stuff, without revealing too much about the story and the implications of what you did and, the actions, I thought it was really cool how, like, later missions in the game, when you're sneaking around camps and stuff and outposts, you can hear guards talking about, like, oh, did you hear about all that fucked up shit that happened at the oil field? And one guy's like, yeah, I heard that was Big Boss. Like, what the hell? Why would Big Boss go blow up an oil field?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, eh? And I like how a lot of it only happens at small levels, but a lot of stuff gets recontextualized as you're playing around through the game. On that note, so there's one mission where you rescue a prisoner, and if you rescue some other prisoners, you get way more backstory on the situation that reveals the mission is quite different to what you thought it was. And it doesn't really matter, but it does, where was I going with that? It does kind of, I've lost it.
Well, speaking of, like, the capturing soldiers and stuff and adding context to the missions and stuff, I thought, because, it's always been a theme since the beginning of Metal Gear Solid, not necessarily Metal Gear, but that, bad guys always turn out to maybe not really be that bad, or, they're just misunderstood, or you don't have their whole story and everything before you should make judgment on them. All of the target assassination missions, like, whenever you take those out, or you Fulton them, like, Kaz will tell you at the end of the mission, like, oh, it turns out he's not really that bad of a guy. There's some circumstances surrounding it. I can't remember what soldier it was. I think there was one where Kaz was like, well, actually, he is kind of a piece of shit. But that's really cool. And that's with VIPs and your assassination targets. Like, I can't think of very many assassination targets that I just killed, because we've all played Ground Zeroes and we know that you're better off capturing these people. So I know it was the war economy, the guy who's meeting the arms dealer in the airport. I struggled with that for a long time. In the end, I just whacked him from long range, just waited for him to show his face, just shot him in the head and rolled out. Like,
that is a really, I don't know if you've ever played the old Delta Force games, but that mission is probably the coolest assassination mission in any game ever, because you can take the standard approach and it makes it a very easy mission. If you play the ordinary video game style of get in a perch, get your sniper rifle, wait for him to show up, shoot him in the head and leave, you're fine. But if you want to play it Metal Gear Solid, that means getting up close and personal, extracting targets, dealing with guards, all that sort of thing. I think it's an excellent mission.
I definitely struggle with that mission too, because I mean there's like so many guards and it's your first time I think it was the airport, and you know there's a lot of stuff going on. I saw a video on the subreddit that was a really interesting take on that mission I thought was really funny. The guy snuck in and found the arms dealer and put a C4 on him and then waited till he got back into the helicopter and blew him up after he got in.
Yeah, that was cool. And like I did that mission with Quiet and I was still suffering. She was useful, but she didn't have very many sniper perches and basically she's just watching my back. We could probably talk about Quiet. I could do a whole podcast on Quiet, I think. Maybe we should, but we'll go into it today. Yes. So here's a question. A, did you begin the game by trying to play non-lethally? And B, what was your first kill? At what point did you consciously switch and go, I can't do this anymore, I'm going lethal?
I mostly did non-lethally starting off, definitely, because I mean I've been conditioned since I was like 9 years old to play non-lethally. And then I think it was the mission before Honeybee, or it might have even been the Honeybee, where I kept getting spotted and I just got frustrated. I was like, you know what, fuck it. The back of the game case says all for revenge. I'm feeling pretty vengeful right now because of this goddamn mission, and then I just rolled.
Yeah. Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun.
I uploaded a video just briefly for the guys for the first time I went lethal. I think it was mission 10, an angel without wings or something like that. When you rescue Malak, I was talking about it before. And you roll up to him and he's in a jeep, and if you're quick, you can intercept him. I wasn't quick, and suddenly they just drive off. You're like, fuck! So you're tailing this guy. Meanwhile, prisoners have been killed in the background, and you just get a little message saying prisoner has been executed. It's like, what the fuck? Follow this guy. They lock him up in a compound and go off and interrogate him. And I messed something up, so they weren't interrogating him, but if he's in a compound, I'm trying to sneak in. I don't know what I was doing. I kept getting spotted. There's no way I could fight these guards off non-lethally. And eventually, at one point, a reflex kicked in, and I looked around and realized that it was just going to be another restart. And I just went, fuck it, I'm done. I'm getting this guy out of here. Because if they build up a big sob story about him too, about his father's dead and his village has been wiped out and he's had a shit life or whatever. Okay. And then I just flipped and I just switched my assault rifle and just started dropping dudes. And then an APC rolls in and starts shooting, and I'm like, I don't even have any anti-armor gear at this point. I'm like trying to roll grenades off a ramp to land on it, which wasn't working. And I just killed a bunch of guys, sprinted in, put some C4 on it, ran away, blew it up, murdered everybody, threw him in a jeep, started driving out, had a helicopter coming in, big action escape, and I just never went back from there. I just couldn't go back to being non-lethal because it just kept getting harder and harder. So yeah, that mission 10 was when I switched.
Oh, so did you play lethally throughout the rest of the game?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I was actually thinking about doing another playthrough playing lethally and, more like what I think a traditional, shooter, soldier, game story type deal would have been. But when you were talking about the soldiers, they started getting killed on that mission too. I think it was when the second prisoner got killed and I realized what was going on. I kind of switched into like, all right, well, what would I really do in this situation? I kind of outweighed the lives of, the prisoners to the soldiers, and I just started going absolutely apeshit too. It's like, all right, I have to get these guys out. They're being murdered. They're counting on me, and I just and I kind of continued that into the unlucky dog side missions because I felt like it's a diamond dog in there. I have to get him out, so I'd roll in. I would do a scan first, make sure there was no at the time A and A plus soldiers, and then other than that, I was like, all right, I gotta get my guy out of there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and lethal is satisfying. I can't remember which mission, but one of them took me to Kasiba camp. That's the one in Africa next to the swamplands.
Oh yeah.
And I think you got to rescue a guy who's escaped and then rescue another guy who's inside. That was intense. Like it was full on firefights, but staying invisible in the middle of combat in a swamp is really tricky, but it was a really satisfying one to pull off. And that wouldn't have happened non-lethally. I would have, if I just stuck non-lethally, I would have been restarting so many times, and that's not really how I wanted to play the game for the first time. I wanted to do whatever it would take to succeed, including any compromises.
I know in Afghanistan, I was either sneaking suit or Desert Fox all the time. What did you find effective for Africa? Did you just wear the sneaking suit the whole time, or?
Early on, I just went with woodlands and wetlands, whatever it is. is jungle camouflage and swamp camouflage is pretty much what I stuck with. And I went, in my first runs, I would normally go naked in Africa just for that extra speed, and it looks fantastic. And then later on, I used to just deploy ASAP, so I didn't really see any point to worrying about the time, because the missions early on, like the first time you do a mission, you take quite a while, so the sun will go up and down anyway. I'm like, oh well, it's going to change, so instead of me trying to plan this, I'll just roll with what's happening. So I didn't use the sneaking suit too much, and then later on when I started getting a bit more aggressive and better at sneaking, and suddenly I wanted quieter footsteps and I wanted to be playing at night and less visible, so I pretty much default sneaking suit. But the fatigues definitely have their benefits.
Absolutely. And was there any missions that you just like stuck out to you still as like, I fucking hated that mission, or oh my god, that was hard as shit?
Oh, no. Nothing, not to say there weren't, nothing sticks out to me right now. No, I got nothing, really. Like, frustratingly hard. I'm trying to think, I should go through the list in my head. Well, I mean, War Economy, that one I was talking about before, it took me quite a few goes. And it didn't help that my first FOB invasion, Mission 22 kicked in when I went to do that mission.
Oh shit.
No, there's nothing like infuriating. I don't remember anything infuriating. You know, that's the other great thing about the game design in this. It's always fair. Like, whenever anything goes wrong, it's your fault.
I found that most of the time for me. There was still not too much during the single player, like normal stuff, that I'd like kind of just get angry at the game. I think there was only like 2 or 3 times where I was like, oh fuck you, like it shouldn't happen like that. FOB, I've definitely had some like glitchy problems mentioned in the chat the other day. Like I think 3 times now I've gone into reflex mode, and like I'll turn to where the guy is seeing me from, and he's like behind a wall or like behind a crate or something. I'm like, nope.
Is that a glitch, or is it just mean you've gone too far after reflex kicked in?
I've definitely had a few of those where like I knew it was my fault, like I knew I like turned a corner too fast or something. But there was definitely like 2 or 3 where like I definitely felt it was like a glitch.
Oh, okay. You're on PS4, right?
I am, and I'm not complaining too much, because like with the hours that I've dumped into it, and I mean with how game design is these days, I mean like those kind of things are bound to happen. I mean they are still frustrating, but at the same time I kind of understand, like, okay, well I've dumped like 90 hours into this thing, like I mean it's kind of to be expected.
You're gonna find that stuff. Yeah. One talking about things being your fault, like I just love it when something sloppy I did half an hour ago catches up with me. I'm trying to rush through something, or you're just taking care of guards and you just left one guy because he has low stats and you left him asleep, like knocked out on the side of the road, and then one of those little patrol trucks comes past and the guys see him and get out, and suddenly everybody's on alert and they're looking for an intruder, and you're like, fuck, I had this, and I wasn't careful enough about some stupid D rank combat unit guy.
Yeah, the one D rank that you left behind is the one soldier that fucks you over.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Alright, so subreddit rundown.
Alright, let's see what we got here.
Look at top by all week. Should we just look at anything positive? I mean, the subreddit's been, let's be honest, a bit of a shithole since the game came out.
Yes, our fame has come at a price.
I guess so. Oh, this care package from Konami, that was pretty cool. That's good of them. Friends in hospital, Konami sent an amazing care package. That's nice. This Paz cosplay, like, okay. Kojima's found out, okay, this is all crap.
Here's a Who meme.
Surely not.
Here's a fuck Konami.
Oh, yeah. Stick it at the top. Yeah, this. Oh, let's do it. We should do another drinking game around one time. All this crap. I'm being incredibly negative. Oh, well.
Oh, someday.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, I will call one out here. There's a post on Islamic architecture in the Phantom Pain. That's a fucking fantastic post.
Yeah, I saw that the other day. That was amazing.
Yeah, so well done, Grease Lightning. That was excellent.
Yeah, it's like brick by brick that it matches it. I was really impressed by that. Like, I don't know if they they Google mapped and looked around, or like Kojima has a history of like going to places. Like, I wonder if he actually went to Afghanistan and kind of like studied it a little bit.
Go through all the posts and all the pictures in there. They obviously researched what the architecture was of the region and at the time when it was built and all that kind of thing. Very clearly they knew what they're doing, and that's really cool, because Metal Gear Solid hasn't had the chance to do that kind of thing. It's typically been in the realm of Assassin's Creed, so it's cool that they're able to kind of get out in the world a little bit. Actually, you know what, I'm not lying through my arse here, because Metal Gear Solid 4 did that really well as well. Particularly the first 3 maps were incredible in terms of recreating the visual feel of where they were meant to be set. The South America looked like Peru. It looked and felt like Peru, and the Middle East looked and felt like Afghanistan. The Central Europe just looked like Prague.
I thought 4 and 5 were some of the best games in gaming to like really represent the areas, and I think Metal Gear Solid 3 was one of the worst games to accurately represent the areas.
I don't even, I mean, who knows what it's trying to represent? It's like a forest, a just jungle in the middle of Russia?
Yeah, it's a forest in a jungle in a country that should be really desolate for where it is.
Yeah, who cares? But it's hilariously inaccurate. But I can live with that.
Yeah, for what we got, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, while we're on that note, do you think with the way the game's structured, a third map would have worked? A lot of people were hanging out for a snow map or something like that. Do you think that would have worked?
Depending on where it was, I think it absolutely would have. I wouldn't want to see another desert. I wouldn't want to see another jungle. I mean, that doesn't really leave too much besides a snow map, but I mean, like, do you really want a whole chapter of snow is the question.
That is a very good question. I will say I enjoyed Africa. This wasn't a cliched jungle, which is, I think, because of what we were expecting. I know I was. And instead, they really doubled down on the savannah and the difficulties of stealth, of fighting in a really flat area. That was really cool.
Yeah, Africa was hard for me.
Yeah, and there were jungles and nice places. I really liked the Africa map design, the way it's laid out. You've got the hills and stuff in the north, and the Lufwai Valley in the northeast, and kind of the river and the village and the oil pipeline over on the west, and then the savannah all to the southeast. And they'd get a lot of mileage out of that for their mission design.
Absolutely. Salad and Germo are bringing up. Salad says urban map, and Germo saying like a Camp Omega sized. Maybe something close to urban.
Yeah, for like one-off missions or something like that. I'm in two minds about that, because OKB-0 would be, you'd think, one of those locations, but instead they just included it on the map anyway. If you were going to do side missions, something like OKB-0 might be somewhere else, but instead they just built it into the main map and then put a mission there. So I don't know. I mean, it would have been cool, I guess, but I think I appreciate what they did really well in terms of having locations like an airport and the oil refinery and stuff like that, and then getting mileage out of those for target areas. I didn't miss that kind of thing as much as I thought I would.
Same here. And before we go, if there were to be a third act or a third mission or a third area, what would you have liked to see? Like, not necessarily story-wise, like what kind of area would you have liked?
Yeah, it's a tough one. How about a full-on jungle, though? What about Cambodia or something like that? Like,
I would have really liked that.
Yeah, and maybe that would have made a good third map, in the sense that you don't really want to be free roaming around there too long because it's a jungle and it's shit. So you just get hard missions that require you to get in and do what you want to do, and then get the fuck out because you hate it because the jungle is hell.
Hey, you could have like guards up in the trees and shit.
Yeah, you'd have all sorts of stuff, tunnels, and then you'd have villages and things like that, I guess. But this is kind of stayed away from having civilians and stuff in it as well, so it's a tough call.
Definitely. But, and again, really quick before we go, Sal just brought up a really good point that he wanted to have MGS4 style sneaking through an active battlefield. That would have been a great third map for me, is if there was like an actual battle going on that you had to sneak through. I did really miss that from MGS4.
It's hard to imagine how it would play out in V because it's massive. Can you imagine, I don't know, a Soviet Army tank com? Well, okay, imagine the mission called A Quiet Exit, a force that size fighting another force that size, and you're trying to do an objective in the middle of it. That would be absolutely mental and fantastic.
I was going to say hard, but so amazing. Because, I mean, I didn't get enough out of that for Phantom Pain, like the force meets force.
Well, there was none of it, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of left that idea behind, which they do a lot. They leave ideas behind. Well, once they're happy with them, but I don't know how well realised they really got what they wanted in MGS4. But it's tempting to go, I wish there was this and that and the other thing, when the game is really quite a focused game in terms of gameplay. It's got one main idea that it's about, and that's really what it just deals with. So it's hard to say what other stuff should be there or could be there without kind of ruining that.
True. Well, unless you have any more points, I think we're about to wrap up.
Yeah, I didn't prepare for this one very well, but it's a good return to discussion, and we can start diving in a bit deeper next week and in the weeks to come.
Definitely, yeah. We'll start to get more into like the deeper meanings and themes and stuff as we move forward from here.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, I think, just in terms of the way the characters work and the ideas that pop up or don't pop up. So, yeah, there should be plenty to go on with. And maybe we'll have an MGO discussion too at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm quite a big fan of that.
Me too. I see some complaints about it, but I don't really have any. I'm loving it.
There's always complaints. This is the internet, man, and people will just go. Meh, 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 meh. So, yep. All right, thank you very much. That was good. I think a good little return to a bit of a warm up, really.
Yeah, definitely. Nice little warm up, and thanks to our regulars and friends for listening. If you're tuning in for the first time from the subreddit, thanks very much for checking us out. This is usually a weekly thing, and we'll hopefully see you guys next time.
Wicked. All right. Have a good one, mate.
Thanks, you too, man.